A KLEW News special presentation, Past the Horizon, Alaska's final days in Lewiston. Sponsored locally by your friends at Rogers Toyota.
Tonight, a KLEW News special report, Past the Horizon, Alaska's final days in Lewiston. Over the next half hour, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the Lewiston-Nez Perce County Regional Airport. Could anything have been done to prevent its final departure? Did a consultant's report have telltale signs? What's being done now? And how did another airport beat the odds? Here's Armen Araradian.
On Monday, March 26th of this year, Horizon Air, operated by Alaska Airlines, announced it would no longer be serving the Lewiston-Nez Perce County Regional Airport due to no longer being able to justify the costs of operating, and its last flight would be August 25th, tomorrow. That announcement generated a lot of anger and frustration in the community. For one woman and her daughter, losing the direct flight to Boise is more than just an inconvenience.
Heartbroken. I was sad. I was just like, well, now what are we going to do?
Amy Wilcox and her daughter Maisie live in Kamei, 60 miles from Lewiston. And for them, having certain flights in and out of the Lewiston-Nez Perce County Regional Airport is critical.
My daughter Maisie goes to the School of Deaf and Blind down in Gooding, Idaho.
Every Monday morning for the past school year, Amy and Maisie make the hour-and-a-half-long drive on Highway 12 to Lewiston. There, Maisie would catch the direct Horizon flight to Boise to go to school.
There's hard of hearing kids like me, so they know what I've been through. But here, I can't really relate that well to people. I kind of feel like an outcast.
She flew back every Thursday on the same flight. For Maisie, that school is everything.
I learn sign language, which does help my speech because I can think of the sign and then know the word and then say the word right.
This upcoming school year, she'll be a sophomore with plans for higher education.
This school will help me get into college, I know that for sure.
But now that Horizon is pulling out of the Lewiston area, the flight to Boise is gone.
We don't know how she's going to be able to go to that school.
Horizon will continue to fly out of the Pullman-Moscow Regional Airport, but Amy says that route will take an entire day of travel, as those flights take travelers to Seattle to connect to Boise. The only other carrier at Lewiston is SkyWest, operated by Delta Airlines.
I've looked at Delta a little bit to see how they fly. I know she'd have to get a connecting flight in Salt Lake City and then fly up, and that's a long day of travel, so she'd probably have to leave on a Sunday.
So as of right now, Amy says it's still up in the air if Maisie will be able to attend the School of Deaf and Blind in Gooding, Idaho. And they're not the only ones affected, as there are several other families in our area who are in the same predicament. Amy can just hope her pleas are heard.
Try to get the flight back to Boise. It's super important to us, and I know we're not the only people that it's important to.
Amy says Maisie will not go to the School of Deaf and Blind and this year because of travel, and hopes there is a resolution. We asked you on our Facebook page what your thoughts are, and we received a huge response. Lisa Davis from Grangeville commented, "Those who live to the south and east of the valley will now have an even longer drive to use Horizon, and making winter flights is dicey." Becky Lawrence of Lewiston says she isn't happy either because her family lives in Boise. She flew down for monthly visits. Now what? Kale Johnson wrote, "Lewiston fails miserably to fill seats. It's just business. If there's no profits, they pull the plug." Days after Alaska Air Group announced its decision to end services to Lewiston and consolidate with Pullman, a local woman began a petition in an attempt to keep Horizon Airlines in Lewiston. Amanda Collins has a daughter who flies to Boise monthly, and she says the usual 55-minute flight will now turn to around 5 or 6 hours. Many comments among the thousands of signatures say how essential the flights to both Boise and Seattle are for their livelihood or their lives.
We may seem minute to them, and to see this happen is just a slap in the face. I really feel like our community is going downhill.
Collins' petition is currently at just over 2,000 supporters of the 5,000 signature goal. Horizon Airlines has operated out of Lewiston for 35 years, so let's now take a look back at its service here in Lewiston to the Lewis-Clark Valley and why, after so many decades, they're departing for good. Horizon Air has served the Lewiston-Nez Perce County Regional Airport since March 1983, flying direct to Seattle, Washington, and to Idaho's state capital, Boise.
Your bread and butter is your commercial aspect of an airport, and it makes the public happy too when they can travel by air.
Historically, the airport consistently achieves relatively low load factors compared to industry averages. Alaska Airlines numbers obtained by KLEW News show that over the past decade, Lewiston only surpassed a 65% load factor once. A spokesperson for the airline says their minimum load factor for profits is in the upper 70s to low 80s. As you can see, Lewiston's range from the 50s to low 60s from 2007 to 2016. Joe Gish is a Horizon pilot and was part of the Lewiston-Nez Perce County Airport Authority Board.
Those loads might have been profitable in the past, and they're not anymore.
According to a report the Airport Board commissioned this time last year, loads have actually gone up over the past decade overall. In 2007, loads were at 56%, and now they've risen to 63%. To add to it, the number of people boarding an airplane reached an all-time high in 2017 with over 72,000. That's 5% higher than the previous record in 2016. That's why you saw headlines from the airport about air traffic gaining altitude. In April 2008, Horizon got rid of 2 direct flights from Lewiston to Seattle. Horizon also got bigger planes, which doubled passenger capacity from a 37-seat Q200 to a faster 74-seat Q400. It saw fewer flights, but had 50% more seats.
You know, it's a business decision, and of course business involves money, and everybody wants to make a profit.
That brings us to 2017. A spokesperson for Alaska Airlines told me from April 2017 to April 2018, loads on the Boise flight was below their minimum at 52%. Remember, they like to see load factors around 80%. During that same time, we're told loads from the Seattle flight were at 60%. The national average for domestic flights, according to the U.S. Department of Transportation, is close to 83%.
They're making the changes they need to. So we as an airport need to be sensitive to that and do what we can to help them in their business case.
Horizon Air is responsible for around 60% of the airport's revenue. But when that last Horizon flight takes off tomorrow, it won't be the only part of the airport that's losing money.
There are days, there are shifts when we come in for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and we make less than $10. And that is very depressing.
Ron Lamb has owned the airport coffee and gift shop for 17 years. He says when he first bought it in 2001, doors are open over 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, but he only makes money off departures. Less departures means less money.
Let's just say I am about 1/15 of the daily income right now in 2018 than I was in 2001. 1/15.
He says after Horizon leaves, the coffee shop goes down to 60 to 90-minute daily operations, and he'll likely be making an even smaller fraction of what he was making in 2001. Lamb is currently in the process of trying to sell the store, but has had no offers since it went up for sale in January. Currently, only family members work at the store, including Lamb's 87-year-old mother. When Horizon leaves, SkyWest, operated by Delta Airlines, will be Lewiston's sole carrier as of right now. But could SkyWest be the next one taking off, or will they develop a foothold here in Lewiston? Contrary to Horizon's low load factors, Delta Airlines' SkyWest's load factors performed at 80% on its Salt Lake City connection, according to a report by HubPoint Strategic Advisors, a consulting firm.
SkyWest is a benefit they have. They're flying smaller planes. They're flying the 50-passenger jets. Much easier to keep them filled up than to keep the 90 passengers.
They've been operating out of Lewiston since 2005, and recently they stepped up their service. Gary Peters is the second largest leaseholder at the airport.
It's not rocket science. It's business and relationships. And if you could go over and see those airlines every so often and just have that good relationship.
After the Horizon decision came down, Peters formed a task force to try to keep SkyWest and possibly reach out to other carriers.
If Pullman went after Horizon, they're obviously going to be wanting to go talk to Delta at some point in time.
The task force was made up of Peters, Hillcrest Aviation's Gail Wilson, Nez Perce County Commission Chair Doug Havens, Lewiston City Manager Alan Nygaard, former Airport Authority Board Member Vera Long, former Valley Vision CEO Doug Mattoon, and HubPoint's founder and managing director Doug Banez.
We own the fact why Horizon left. We didn't dodge it or come up with excuses. We thanked them for their service in the past, and we asked them flat out, what would it take for us to get service in the future?
The task force went in wanting to possibly add a Seattle or a Boise flight. Those connections didn't happen at that time because of gate availabilities, but SkyWest was open to the idea.
They said, hey, when the gates open up, but we need to stay, we need to have meetings with them. So if the gate comes available, they're like, hey, those guys in Lewiston are ready.
SkyWest, however, did add 4 flights per week between Lewiston and Salt Lake City, a 50% increase in capacity.
I mean, they could be our major carrier out of Lewiston.
Now, we did reach out to SkyWest for comment about adding Seattle and Boise flights. A spokesperson told me, quote, Delta Airlines stays out of speculations. We do not speculate on the future of a market. We analyze the market and strive to service it accordingly, end quote. Folks who fly Horizon can still do it. From Lewiston, they're just going to have to drive around 30 miles north to the Pullman-Moscow Regional Airport. And now service will increase by 4 flights a week to Seattle. They'll have 4 flights on Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday, and 3 flights on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Airport Executive Director Tony Bean says their load factors fluctuate because of the Washington State University and University of Idaho academic calendars, along with Schweitzer engineering activities, but their load is usually in the mid-70s, which is where Alaska Airlines likes to see it. Bean even says the Pullman-Moscow Regional Airport could get a 5th flight if numbers are up, and they do expect that to happen with more flights. That airport is currently in the middle of a massive $150 million expansion to extend its runway and revamp its terminal. Pullman Airport Director Tony Bean says he and upper management meet with Alaska Aero Group at least once a year, and when their new runway is complete, the plan is to heavily push for marketing once airport runway projects are completed.
Coming up on Past the Horizon, Alaska's final days in Lewiston, were the warning signs clear in a consultant report. And later,
it was very clear that Walla Walla could be on the chopping block, and then that's where we really started stepping up.
We take you to the Walla Walla Regional Airport, where officials there saw the signs and picked up on them before it was too late.
Around this time last year, the previous Lewiston Airport Authority Board authorized a study on the airport. The purpose was to figure out what challenges Lewiston faces, what future goals should be, and to help develop a plan moving forward. The HubPoint report came back with warning signs. It's a 50-page document containing information such as load factors, airline industry trends, and recommendations for the Lewiston-Nez Perce County Regional Airport. Around this time last year, the Authority Board hired HubPoint strategic advisors to put together an air service development strategic plan. Vera Long was one of those board members at the time.
It said that their load factor was low up in Lewiston, and we should be immediately talking to Horizon about trying to work out, to get the load factor up.
The report found that the load average for the Horizon flight to Boise was 63%, and for Seattle was lower, at 61%. Many in the airport community point to this specific study as a warning sign that Horizon was going to leave months before it ever happened. One section reads, quote, of the 47 markets Horizon operated, Lewiston ranked in the bottom 3 in terms of average load factor.
Nobody discussed it. We had meetings in December and January and February. It was never brought up at a board meeting, and we spent $40,000 for this report, and I would have expected that to be brought up at a meeting to be discussed.
There have been many rumors that airport manager Stephanie Morgan did not distribute the report to the board. I filed a public records request and found Morgan had in fact sent the report to every board member, the assistant airport manager, and the airport's bookkeeper on December 1st, 2017, at 5:33 p.m. That's within 48 hours of her receiving it herself.
I think that the board, we would have been on it to get things corrected at that time. There's nobody on the board that wasn't willing to work to fix it.
I also found an email from ex-chairman Jim Finley saying, quote, "We need to figure out how to fill the flights we currently have," and that he wanted to discuss the Hub Point report with the board internally. But multiple sources have told me that never happened.
Well, there was a situation on the airport board itself where we had some members stepping down and maybe some disgruntled members.
At that time, Chairman Jim Finley was removed from his position and the board was in disarray. But Long still believes something should have been done.
Well, if they could have been corrected, we could have got the load factors up. I think they would have probably stayed.
The Hub Point report also said the Lewiston Airport can improve its business by having open doors of communication with airlines. Long says he's heard that the airport was in brief communications with Horizon, but those were halted for unapparent reasons.
Blame falls on the board. I mean, the board responsible for running the airport.
Now, Verl Long was removed from his position along with the remainder of the Airport Authority Board in April of this year. That's when the City of Lewiston and Nez Perce County Commissioners decided to wipe the slate clean and appoint new members. But you'll see a little later, there's still turbulence on the board. As for Airport Manager Stephanie Morgan, we repeatedly asked her for an on-camera interview for this special report and for her expert opinion on the consultant report. But on August 2nd, she responded, quote, "After speaking to the board and our legal counsel, I will not participate without the questions in advance," end quote. She did add that she appreciates the opportunity to potentially showcase Lewiston's gem of an airport, the newly reconstituted board's vision, added SkyWest flights, superb community support, and exciting upcoming projects. While SkyWest is the sole carrier at the moment, the Hub Point report gave recommendations on what airlines could be possibly interested in Lewiston. One of those options is Allegiant Air, which could possibly fly to Las Vegas and or Phoenix. Another recommendation was Frontier Airlines and United Airlines. Those carriers both fly into the hubs in Denver and San Francisco. Hub Point also recommended Part 135 carriers, which are aircraft that hold a capacity of 9 or less passengers. Those airlines include Southern Airways Express, Great Lakes, and Boutique Air, among many others. Also advised were charter flights operated in conjunction with local casinos and resorts. Charter flights are operated by airlines such as Extra Airways and Sun Country with B-737 aircraft. Right now, the Lewiston Airport is losing money. For fiscal year 2017-2018, which runs from October 1st through September 30th of this year, the Lewiston Airport had budgeted an expected net income of just over $3 million. Documents I've obtained show that from the beginning of the fiscal year through June 15th of this year, the airport has actually lost over $68,000. We cannot definitively say that number won't rebound in the fourth quarter because estimates show when Horizon leaves, the airport stands to lose an estimated $250,000 to $300,000 in yearly revenue. Now, those numbers present a problem in relation to trying to attract a new carrier. Airlines are in the business of making money, and so if there's no money, there's no incentive to operate out of a location. Joe Gish says he was attempting to figure out the budget and where the money's going.
There are actuals that are being charged to budget lines that don't have any budget on them. So I'm assuming that those things weren't even approved. We need to have a good budget framework and have budget discipline as we spend our money. We need to make that the priority.
Hub Point did recommend in its report that the Lewiston Airport needs to reach out to new carriers.
Still ahead on Past the Horizon, Alaska's final days in Lewiston, how airline industry trends played a role, but how one airport beat the odds.
The issues that the Lewiston-Nez Perce County Regional Airport faces are not unusual, and there are certain things that could have never been prevented when you look at industry trends. Since 2001, the U.S. airline industry has experienced significant consolidation, What were once 12 separate airlines have consolidated to form 5 mainline carriers. That means less options for passengers. Airlines are also increasingly using larger planes with more seats. That translates into less flights, exactly what happened to Lewiston in 2008. The biggest impact has been to regional airports.
The one that directly affected us, and that was one of the parts of the decision by Horizon, was their airlines are focusing toward hub traffic, which are, instead of flying from one little short leg to another short leg to another short leg, they're going all flights right to a main hub like Seattle, Portland, San Francisco.
Airlines rely on hub traffic because it's how they can fill the biggest planes and remain the most profitable. And that presents the biggest problem for regional airports because they have trouble meeting profitable load requirements.
If they have 4 flights out a day and they're not filling them up, then they'll go to 3 flights, then they'll go to 2 flights, and then pretty soon, do you keep a station open for so few flights?
But perhaps the biggest trend and possibly threat is the national pilot shortage. It hurts small communities the most because of their reliance on regional airlines and a relative lack of options to fly alternate airlines. That means if Horizon isn't able to make a flight because of lack of pilots, there aren't many other options. And these numbers are only expected to get worse. Tomorrow will affect more airports than just Lewiston. The Eugene, Oregon to San Jose, California flight will end less than 3 years after its first run. Bellingham to Portland will also halt operations. Tomorrow is also the last day for the Pasco to Portland flight. Sun Valley, Idaho will also see cutbacks. And Lewiston isn't the only one with a complete end of service either. Horizon is pulling out of Mammoth Yosemite Airport in California. The pilot shortage and operating costs were reasons given for all of those moves. But when you take a look at the Walla Walla Regional Airport, it proves that not all airports are seeing cutbacks. The Walla Walla Regional Airport operated 2 Horizon flights per day. In 2016, Horizon gave Walla Walla a 3rd flight. It was based off of a need and how Walla Walla had put its airport at the center of Horizon's broader viewpoint. So that begs the question, what did Walla Walla do to deserve a 3rd flight? And could Lewiston have looked at their model of success to prevent Horizon Air from leaving?
Walla Walla did feel the pressure. You know, we were right there at about the next airport, regional airport, that they could pull out of.
The Walla Walla Regional Airport has faced similar problems as a regional airport to what Lewiston is experiencing right now. It was because, like Lewiston, the load factors were just too low.
So in 2010, we were at 60% load factor. And then incrementally, for the last 8 years, it has increased.
Airport manager Jennifer Skoglund says in 2016, the airport hit 80% load factor.
They have always told us that they like the 80% load factor for Walla Walla. And we have been below that, and we've worked our way up.
In 2016, after loads had reached profitable numbers, Alaska gave Walla Walla a 3rd daily flight. But how did Walla Walla raise the loads by 20 percentage points in just 6 years?
We have had a fantastic relationship with Alaska Airlines. We make an effort to go visit them annually at their headquarters in Seattle.
Skoglund says the airport even hosted Alaska Air Group in Walla Walla. But possibly the biggest help was a $250,000 grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation. They also raised another $50,000 from the local community and the port. So with that grant money, they simply invested.
So we marketed Walla Walla and regionally and in California. We marketed with print, radio, social media, digital.
She says every aspect of Walla Walla was put front and center.
World-class wineries, world-class restaurants, a wonderful, rich history of agriculture.
And Skoglund believes that dedication to reaching out to Alaska and working with them to develop a marketing strategy has made all the difference.
I believe has increased our load factors, has increased our passengers, and has to this day saved Alaska Airlines and Walla Walla.
Skoglund says the Walla Walla Regional Airport did also give Horizon reductions in rates for a period of time for both landing fees and terminal rent. She recommends every regional airport maintain constant communication with airlines and utilize every possible marketing medium.
Up next on Past the Horizon, Alaska's final days in Lewiston.
I don't care if they gold plate Pullman. Our airport will be 100 times better.
While nobody may have an exact answer to why certain things weren't achieved or weren't done a specific way, many still have strong opinions on Horizon Air's departure from Lewiston.
I think that we could have lowered their fees, given a break on the rent, and basically did the model that Walla Walla did.
While former board member Joe Gish says things could have been done different to keep Alaska in north central Idaho, Lewiston City Councilor Jed Randall isn't so sure.
We could have maybe forestalled it for a little while. I think it would have been inevitable.
Gish believes Valley residents are partly to blame.
I think they have to understand that they've got to use the air service or they'll lose it.
Meantime, airport tenant Gary Peters says the Lewiston airport is more desirable than the one up north.
I don't care if they gold plate Pullman, our airport will be 100 times better. And here we are losing all of our flights.
Others say improvements need to be made here, including marketing. But coffee shop owner Ron Lamb says it isn't a guarantee.
I think Lewiston, from what I'm seeing happen now, is going to be a SkyWest only connected airport. And I just don't see any other airline coming into Lewiston in the near future.
So what happens now with Lewiston-Nez Perce County Regional Airport? Within the past 48 hours, Joe Gish has resigned from his position on the board. Gish writes that recent events leading up to last week's board meeting have demonstrated he has been locked out of basic board operations and that he can no longer be effective. He says he's unable to place items on agendas and it is difficult for him to request and receive information. Acting Airport Authority Board Chairman Tony Mairana resigned just 8 days before Gish did on August 14th. He was appointed to the board in May and his tenure lasted only 83 days. Mairana cited time constraints with his family and his personal business. One day after Mairana's resignation on August 15th, Airport Attorney Jennifer Douglas also resigned. She was hired by the Airport Authority Board soon after the City of Lewiston and Nez Perce County Commissioners appointed each of their reps. Her reason for termination in representation, quote, "It appears that I have been criminally targeted in order to threaten and continue my effective representation of the airport authority," end quote. She also addressed that she and board member Chris Clemens are friends, that neither Clemens nor her have a conflict of interest, but concluded that there is a risk because of that friendship that some may question her independent professional judgment. So that brings us to an airport authority board currently looking for a fourth and fifth member, also without an attorney. Those close to the airport say management is working on a marketing plan to save commercial flights, but we have not been able to independently confirm that. What we do know for sure is that this time tomorrow, Horizon Air will no longer operate out of Lewiston, and SkyWest will be the only carrier. I'm Armen Araradian. Thanks for joining us.
Past the Horizon, Alaska's final days in Lewiston. Sponsored locally by your friends at Rogers Toyota.